When it comes to sales, the key to being a successful salesperson is don't be overly salesy. Shake as many hands as you can, but when you're out, never talk business, right? And that's a secret that I don't tell too many people. Sales journey and cold calling, unfortunately, people associate them together, right? You don't need to be a cold calling wizard to kill it in sales. In my industry, I needed to in the beginning. My assistant, he will not need to because he works for me. And I've done enough in this industry and I've built myself up to a point where leads come to me without much effort. It's been a 7-year journey to get here.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on any of the podcast directories or YouTube, make sure to give us a follow because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I'm bringing on this year. Without further ado, let's get right into this one. Austin, the man, the myth, the legend, coming back for the official podcast interview. I had him at my 100th episode, and now he's back for the full podcast interview. For anyone who didn't listen to the 100th episode, man, tell us about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Sure, John. First off, thanks for having me. I don't know what number we're up to, but it's certainly an honor to have been on the 100th. My name is Austin, the insurance guy Glazer, and I help people live a safer life. I own my own insurance brokerage and Safe Shield Insurance, where we help you with your business and personal insurance. In addition to that, I'm a keynote speaker around the country. I help with sales trainings. I'm also a real estate investor, and I love to play golf. And my favorite thing is long walks on the beach.
Amazing, Austin. And let's go back into your backstory a little bit, man. We kind of heard a glimpse of it at the 100th episode, but that was a little shorter. So today we get to dive into a little bit, man. Take us back in the time machine a little bit. Where does your story all kick off?
Sure. My story kicks off. I grew up in Long Island, New York, where grew up with my mom and my dad. Lived a normal Long Island life, very privileged, upper middle class. Things kind of hit the fan in 08, 09. My father owned a family-owned appliance business in Brooklyn, New York. The recession hit us, and unfortunately, we were one of the ones that were not able to push through. We moved to Florida, where I was going to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, where very quickly after, my mother was diagnosed with a terminal form of brain cancer and given 3 months to live. 2.5 months later, she was gone. My father decided he wanted to be a part of the picture. I started to go down a very bad path. I was adopted 6 different times before I eventually settled in Westchester, New York, living with my aunt and uncle, where I realized that it was up to me to make a difference in my life and be the change that you wanted to see. And now here I am, 10 years later since my mother passed, done some really big things. And it's all about the journey you take to get here. And that's what I'd say has been my story so far, but there are so many pages left to be written, John.
Yeah, 100%, man. If you don't mind me diving into a little bit, man, what was it like growing up with your aunt and uncle? So for me, my mother, she suffered from mental health issues, and my dad, he was absent until a couple of years ago. Me and him started to get back on the same page. But my grandparents raised me. So what was it like growing up with your aunt and uncle, man?
So growing up with my aunt and uncle, it was certainly interesting. They took me in, and coming from where I was in Long Island with having everything, my uncle specifically did everything to make it so that I learned the value of the dollar, right? Nothing was handed to me. I really had to work for everything. And while they live in a very beautiful home and their kids have everything, I was never given everything. I was given food and shelter, and the rest was left up to me. So it was very challenging because I felt like I was an outcast a lot of the time, not like I was part of the family. It wasn't until very recently that I actually started to feel like part of the family and realize that those people have become a mom and dad to me. But without those life lessons that they taught me, going through that stuff when it was happening, I was constantly asking myself, why me instead of trying me? And while I've done some cool things really quickly, maybe I could have done it a little sooner if I hadn't played the world's smallest violin and realized what lied ahead of me and what I could do if I just sacked up and did what I needed to do, which I eventually figured out.
Yeah, so you're at a point where now you're living with your aunt and uncle, and then if I'm not mistaken, you got directly into sales with an insurance brokerage. If I'm not mistaken, that's how the story goes.
Right.
Take us through that time, man. You got up and got a job. There's a lot of people nowadays that just like don't want to work for anyone, don't want to just put any work in at all. And like everyone wants to become an entrepreneur, and it's the flashy thing, but sometimes you have to, earn your stripes, right?
Sure.
Before you go on and start your own thing. So take us back to that point in time where you very much could have said, screw it, to hell with the world, man, everything's not going my way. But you dug yourself out of that hole. If anything, you dug yourself out of that hole and managed a way to climb out and hit your stride. So what was it like when you were first digging yourself out, starting at that insurance brokerage, being the age that you are in an industry where majority of people are like double, triple our age? So what was that like, man?
Yeah, sure. Good question, John. So I'd say that when I was in college, one of the things, again, my uncle was like, you need that piece of paper. You're going to college. Now, I was never a good student, but I realized that I needed that
Yeah.
piece of paper to sort of credentialize my dreams. And I've said that specific word on stage before. And it's true. I did need to credentialize my dreams. But what it meant is it meant I needed to work even harder. So while I was working 3 jobs in high
Hmm.
school, it meant I needed to get 6 jobs in college so that I can afford to go to college, right? And while I wasn't a good student,
Yeah.
I always knew in the back of my head, coming from being the grandson of one of the pioneers of Hebrew National, the hot dog company, he had the gift of gab. And one thing I remember growing up, I
Yeah.
used to say to myself, I was always very bad at sports, but I played them all. I played lacrosse, I played football, I did a little wrestling. What I always said to myself is, I wonder what my talent is, right? I've never been good at sports. I never fit in athletically. I always had a lot of friends, but athletically, I didn't fit in. But I realized that
Yeah.
my talent was talking. I was far superior to anyone else when it came to being able to convince someone to do something. And in the beginning, it
Yeah.
was just very aggressive sales techniques that I eventually learned didn't work. But it was one day that I was sitting in my college dorm room, and I realized that with my disadvantages that I was faced with, unfortunately, it meant, and I already knew this by then, unfortunately, it meant that I'd have to work a little bit harder than everybody that comes before me or anyone who's going to come after me. Because in order for them to give a look at me, I got to make myself shine like a brand new red car, and that's what I did. So
Hmm.
prior to applying to this specific insurance brokerage, and I'm going to stop you, John, before we get too far into it. I'm not going to address that company by name. I am going to be
Yeah.
very, very cautious of that. I am under a 2-year non-compete, which we'll get into later. But I was already working in some sales positions, right? So while in college and I had the 6 jobs, I worked for what's called the Telefund. And what I did at the Telefund is I raised money for the Alumni Association. So basically, I'd call alumni who used to go to SUNY Oswego, and I would ask them to make a contribution to the school's Alumni Association. Turns out I was pretty good at it because in a very short amount of time, I'd raised the most money in the school's history. It's like, ah, shit, there's something here. In addition to that, I was working for this startup. It was called Textbook Valet. And what Textbook Valet was, in retrospect, was a fantastic idea. What it was is we would basically, I personally, I was a campus representative. And for those out there that are listening, as a campus representative, what your job is to just rep the brand on campus, do whatever the hell they ask you. So I did that. And what they
Yeah.
did was buy and sell textbooks at the beginning and the end of every semester. People would, during finals time, again, I was not the person that was getting through classes. Like I'd wake up, trust me, I studied, but I didn't work that
Yeah.
hard in school. And I still, I'm not a studier. Anyways, people started to know me as Austin, the textbook guy, because I'd go around and I'd buy people's textbooks. I'd sell them at the end of the year. And I was making good money doing it. And I realized there that it was all about branding. I was on Facebook, Instagram, DMing people. Hey, meet me at the library. I was literally sitting in the library, not studying, because I wouldn't study, but I was sitting in the library waiting for people to finish their finals so they'd sell me their goddamn textbooks. And let me tell you something, John, they did. Now, as we're going through all of this, I realize that I'm very good at sales. I have something that a lot of people don't, and that's it. There's a degree of the it factor in sales, and I possess all of it. And
Hmm.
when I realized this, I said, "All right, it's time to kind of start making some strides." So I started applying to literally 100 different internships. A couple of companies called me for an internship. They said, "Okay, we'll give you a look. Come in for an interview." No problem. I went to this company, C.H. Robinson. It's a logistics company. It was in Syracuse, right near my college. I walked into the interview room. The first question they asked me, John, and here I am thinking I'm the best goddamn bullshitter that's ever walked the earth. They said to me, Austin, define logistics. And I swear to God, I sat there and I said to myself, I said, guys, to be honest, I thought I'd be able to bullshit this. I can't. And I walked out of there with my head between my legs because I realized that if I don't prepare, I won't be anything. So I went back to the drawing board. I kept applying to
Yeah.
different internships. I applied to this one insurance company that was in Trumbull, Connecticut, about 7 hours away from where I was in college. And I applied as a summer intern. By the grace of God, somehow they gave me a look. And I don't talk too publicly about this
Yeah.
often, but they gave me a look because my brother Adam is one of the biggest insurance agents at that company that they've ever seen. They gave me a look. I was making $24 an hour, and I was just cold calling all day. It was crazy. It was so boring. It was miserable, but I got my feet
Yeah.
wet. It's funny. I have an assistant now, and I've been telling him recently about how important cold calling is. But at my level, people aren't like when you, and we'll touch on this a little later as we go through my sales journey, but like I don't cold call anymore. But when I first got started, I used to cold call all the time. And it wasn't until 2 years later that right before I went back to go into my second year, I said to my manager, I said, listen, I don't want to do this anymore. Can I go shadow a rep for the day? She said yes. And it went well enough because, long story short, they offered me a position as a sales associate where I'd work full time under the number one agent in Connecticut. Where for that year, when I went back to college, I was actually supposed to be the president of my fraternity. They said to me, Austin, we're going to make you the first person in our company's history. And trust me, it's one of the biggest insurance companies in the world. And they said, you are going to be the first full-time student in our company's history. You will work on this guy's team. We'll pay you a salary of X amount of dollars a year, and you'll learn the business. Well, John, the cool thing is that came full circle. And I was able to do it. And it wasn't until, I came and graduated from college, I decided to step down as president of my fraternity because I realized the opportunity that lied ahead. This was the fast track to my goals and everything I wanted. I had the opportunity to stand out with like a shiny red car, like I said I wanted to do. And that's what I did. Now, I don't want to, you're going to ask more questions that'll take us through the story, but that's essentially, how I got in with the company that I got in with, to give you the longest possible answer. That could have gone longer if I wanted it to.
That's amazing, Austin. And it's just like, one, kudos to you, because also, for anyone that doesn't know, I attended public speaking school at Austin, so I can vouch for how much you've grown as a speaker. I mean, you're
Thank you.
already great at speaking, but since the speaker school mastermind a couple months back to now, man, you just keep on getting better. So kudos to you, man.
Hey, I owe that.
And so I want
I
to talk a
want
little
one
bit.
second before you ask that question. I want to give a very big shout out to Brandon Gadoris. I tell him every day I would not be here without him when it comes to public speaking. I owe it all to him. I am so thankful for him and everything he taught me when it comes to public speaking. I thought I had it. I didn't have it when it came to public speaking. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be continuing to evolve ATIG LLC, which is a public speaking endeavor. Okay, sorry, continue.
Amazing, man. And so, no worries. I was gonna ask, man, to talk about like the sales, like specifically. So, like for me, my first sales job I was at K Jewelers, and there, that's when I first cold call. I remember, still to this day, man. I don't talk about it much often, but I was cold calling. They had me cold calling a random list of people. K Jewelers had their own like database or whatever, so I would just call people on the iPad. And then one guy ended up calling, and we had this like promotion. It was like something, 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 30% off gold. I forget what the other promotion were. And started off the pitch because, we had a sales script that we were reading off of. And then I mentioned that there was 30% off gold. And then me and him were on the phone for like almost an hour, man. We were just chopping it up, talking about, jewelry, because he wanted to buy a chain. And long story short, he ended up coming in and he bought like 2 gold chains. It was like $4,000 in chains that he bought. And I was like, damn, that's how. And I think the district manager happened to be in the office that day. So I felt like I still have a photo on my wall about it. So take me through your sales journey, as like the skills you learned cold calling and doing outreach. Like, what did you learn during that time period? Because, man, it does build someone up very quickly if you stick with it long enough, man. You learn a lot.
Sure. So sales journey and cold calling, unfortunately, people associate them together, right? You don't need to be a cold calling wizard to kill it in sales. In my
Yeah.
industry, I needed to in the beginning. My assistant, he will not need to because he works for me. And I've done enough in this industry and I've built myself up to a point where leads come to me without much effort anymore. And that's what I've been
Mm-hmm.
trying to do. But it's been a 7-year journey to get here, right? And
Yeah.
without that 7-year journey of dealing with constant rejection of people saying no, I wouldn't be the man standing in front of you right now. When it comes to sales, the key to being a successful salesperson is don't
Yeah.
be overly salesy. Shake as many
Mm-hmm.
hands as you can, but when you're out, never talk business, right? And that's a secret that I don't tell too many people. John, I'm out 5 days a week. Either I'm on the golf course, I'm getting a dinner, drinks, whatever it might be with someone. When I'm with people, I never talk about sales. And I got to tell you something. If you are someone that talks about sales with me and you talk about work the entire time, I'm not going to want to do business with you. And the reason is because the only people I do business with are the people I know, like, and trust. And that's the key to sales, doing business with the people you know, like, and trust. And until I figured that out, it didn't hit, right? Because when I first got started, John, I was the guy that would wear a shirt and tie every single day. I realized years into it that the key to being successful in sales is being you. I'm actually doing a
Mm-hmm.
keynote on this very shortly, but John, everybody's got a story, right? We opened up with my story, my mom passing away when I was young, being adopted. You told me about your mom. That's great, man. I'm happy you have a story. I'm happy I have a story. But here's the reality, John. Everybody's got a story. And for those that use that story and use it to propel them to success and they use it to tell their story and live their brand, those are the ones that reach the next level. And that's what I've learned
Yeah.
about sales in order to become so successful at such a young age.
Yeah, there's a quote I love. It goes something along the lines of your mess becomes your message. And then your ability to then share that message really is a big
You know,
determining
John, your
factor on
connection's
how
really
far you can
bad.
go.
I haven't been able to see you for about 20 minutes. I don't know if this part gets cut out or what, but I haven't been able to see you for about 20 minutes, and now your mic's cutting out.
Okay, so I could see and hear you perfectly fine. Can you hear me at
I
all?
can hear you. I can't see you though.
You can't see me. All right. In the final recording, so this records locally to our computers and then to the cloud in real time.
Okay.
So there's nothing that's gonna be lost.
Okay.
Can you see me at all now or no?
No,
Let me.
you're frozen, but that's okay.
How about now?
No, you came back the exact same you were.
Oh, damn. Well, we'll keep it going. I could see you perfectly fine, so
That's
I
all
didn't
that
even
matters.
notice. Um, um, but yeah, where were we? You just talked about your mess become. Did you hear my part about your mess becomes your message or no?
Vaguely, I heard it a little bit, but then you cut out.
All right, so I'll just pick up there, and then I'll have my video editor edit all this. All right.
Hmm.
So it reminds me of a quote that I heard one time. It goes something along the lines of "Your mess becomes your message," and those who learn how to share that message and articulate that message, that tends to help them get a lot further, a lot faster. Which is why I've been practicing so much on public speaking, because it's one of those things where we talk every day, and despite that, most people don't actually know how to communicate. And so I wanted to make an effort this year, really, to just go all in on furthering and developing my communication skills, so that no matter whether it's at a function, whether it's at a networking event, whether it's at a family reunion, whether it's on a podcast, that I can, whip up a story and articulate that story in a way that captivates an audience in seconds. And so let me ask you now. So after your time through your at the last company you were at, then you started the insurance brokerage that you have now. So what was it like starting your own independent, company? What was the journey like? What was going on in that point in time in your life? What was the feedback from the peers around you, man? What was going on through that point in time?
Sure. So let me take you back a little bit. So the last we left off when it comes to, sorry, I got an email. The last we left off when it came to my company and where I was in the industry was I was working for this guy, number one agent in Connecticut. After I graduated, I went up to my manager and I told her I was ready to fly free. She told me no. I fought her. I did it. My first day as an agent was February 1st of 2020. March 1st of 2020, we had this thing called COVID happen, right? And now here I am. I'm locked in my condo that I just bought at 22 years old, and I'm fucked because I have one referral partner that's sending me business. And how am I going to make ends meet? So what I did is I got creative 1 month into my career. I bought a green screen that collapses from the ceiling off Facebook Marketplace. I drove to the heart of Brooklyn and I picked it up, masked up and all. And I started making these videos, fast facts with Austin the insurance guy. It was around this time that I started using Austin the insurance guy as well. And I merged the Austin the insurance guy brand with Austin Glazer, which it's important because you want to live your brand. People need to know who the fuck you are. Then
Mm.
I realized how powerful these videos were becoming for me on Instagram because nobody in my industry was doing, not even real estate agents were doing it yet. I launched Close Your Conversations, which was a podcast designed to highlight successful individuals. Now, internally, what it was designed to do was tell other people's stories so that maybe they would want to do business with me. John, it worked. I became almost an overnight sensation. I was writing a shit ton of business. I went on to win Rookie of the Year in 4 categories, one category short of a sweep. I made $350,000 that year, 23 years old, in my first year of my career. I came back the next year and I said, well, what's next for me to do? So what I did was I went on to become countrywide Rookie of the Year. Now I was number one, top dog. Nobody beat me by anything. I actually won it by 350 policies. Now, I did it all. I was number one in Connecticut, number 9 in the country. I passed my mentor in only the second year being there. And I realized that the thing about where I was working, right, is there was no mindset of residual income. The reason people get into insurance is for passive income. If you pay $2,000 a year and I make $200, I make that every single year that you renew as an agency owner. Now, as a producer, that changes. It depends on where you work. But I realized this, and I realized where I was working was creating this sort of rat race because it meant I had to work just as hard every single year to make the same amount of money. And it was sick. I was 24, 25 years old, making 500, 600 grand a year. Pretty cool stuff. But I realized that it wasn't all about the money anymore. I became miserable. I built this massive following, and I realized that if I had just done it right the first time, and I, opened a brokerage or when I worked somewhere where they paid renewals, I could be asset rich in 10 years, not even. and I could probably sell my book for 20, $30 million. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I decided to do. So I left my company, much to the dismay of several people at that company, including my own brother. My own brother and I don't speak
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And the reason for that is because I left a company that he is such a big agent at and I was such a big agent at. We would go to an event. I've never publicly addressed this, so consider yourself lucky.
Yeah.
Um, my brother and I would go to events together, and we were known as the Glazer brothers. Everybody would walk up to us. We were the shit, John. We were the shit.
Yeah.
And we were two top dogs. We were two top 10 agents in the entire country out of 20,000 agents. John, no sugarcoating. We were the real deal. When I left the company, though, the amount of dismay I felt from people was astronomical. People told me I was crazy. My own family wouldn't help me start the business. I had to liquidate my entire 401k and any stock portfolios I had to launch this. And opening the doors
Mm-hmm.
was the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life. And I've overcome quite a bit. But the second I open those doors, of course, there's growing pains, but it's business as usual. And what I've gained
Mm-hmm.
is what I wanted all along, which was the creative freedom to build this however the hell I want. And that's Austin's way. And Austin's way,
Yeah.
I believe, in the insurance industry is the best way. And I'd rather go down swinging than go down with my hands tied behind my back because I listened to someone else tell me what to do. I will chart my own path 10 out of 10 times, John, and I'll be damned if I let someone tell me else how to do it. And no matter how hard it was to open this agency, every single freaking day has been better than when I worked there because I'm free and I'm doing things my way.
I mean, that's an amazing story. It's one of those things where, I had wouldn't say as similar, but almost kind of similar experience where when I left out of college. So for me, first generation college student, everyone thought I was the golden child. I was the one that was going to finish and graduate and get the degree. And when I dropped out in the middle of the pandemic, where the whole world was pretty much uncertain, it was a decision that I knew was going to pay me in dividends. And there's a quote, it goes something along the lines of, the reason why people can't see your vision is because God didn't bless them with it. And for me, I always kept that in the back of my mind because I knew that they couldn't see what I was envisioning for myself, which is why most people didn't understand what I was doing or where I was going. And so that allowed me to propel forward. And that's how I kind of got started with all this stuff and eventually ended up pursuing my real estate license. And fast forward a little bit, now here I am. And so you started your insurance brokerage. What was it like in that beginning stage, getting it off the ground? Like, what did you have to do? Was there sacrifices made? What was it like during that the beginning period where you're trying to get the wheels rolling?
Well, there was what existed, John, was all the doubt, right? Everybody around me telling me I was fucking nuts. And I'll never forget this phone call. After my family told me I couldn't do it and all my mentors told me I was crazy, I called my best friend, Kevin. I said, Kevin, and I talked to Kevin 4 times a day, sometimes 9 times a day. And I said, Kevin, maybe I'm crazy. Because, John, prior to launching my own agency, I interviewed at 37 different companies. I got 37 offers. But I didn't take any of them. And I called Kevin. I said, Kevin, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe everybody's right. He said to me, he said, Austin, if you don't start this insurance agency, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. And he said it with a little bit of seriousness, right? And the reason he said it is he realized that this was what I wanted. And if I didn't do it, I'd be making a big mistake. But going through that, like starting the agency, dude, the amount of paperwork I would do every day, like, dude, I'm still doing it. Like going from being a captive insurance agent to an independent insurance brokerage owner, it's very different. There's a lot more paperwork. The amount of time I spend doing things is crazy. And am I working more hours? Not necessarily. I'm working smarter. I have a staff of people that I'm very thankful for. But opening those doors, John, was the hardest thing I ever did because it was so much unknown. I mean, I didn't have anyone legally counseling me or anything. I did it myself. And obviously I had, lawyers I talked to and stuff, but it's all that was such education. It was education. And I'm the type of person that loves to learn when it's something I'm interested in. And fortunately, it turns out I was pretty interested in it and I was able to launch Safe Shield Insurance, which is now doing very well.
That's amazing. And just for a little bit of, so we get a timeline. How long ago was that, if you don't mind me asking?
February 1st, 2023.
Is when you started. Wow. So now you have that going on your own.
Not even 6 months.
And you've been, yeah, that's amazing, brother. And so now, where is envisioning? Because now you're getting into public speaking, right? So now you're taking this Austin the insurance guy Glazer brand and getting that beyond just insurance. You're taking that to real estate investor meetups, to public speaking against, doing keynotes. What's the vision for it, like for you, man? Where are you planning on taking all this? What's fueling you, right? You conquered your domain of of expertise, the insurance. Now you're going on to bigger things, man. What, one, is the motor pushing you to keep on going, and two, where are you planning on taking all this, man? Where's it going?
Yeah. So let me answer that in a couple different, because that's a very multifaceted question. I didn't master this yet, John. What I mastered
Mm,
is networking. I'm the best networker in Fairfield County that's in my space. I've created networking groups. I've spoke on panels with some of the most successful people in the world. What I've realized though is that's how you maximize your time. That's why I've gotten into public speaking. That's why every move I make is so strategic, John, because I realize that if I social media is the greatest tool ever invented. I can get in front of X
mm,
amount of people at once instead of one to one. Dude, it's a game changing concept that not enough people are taking advantage of. When I got in the industry, people were saying to me, hey, let's grab a cup. Or sorry, when I got in the industry, I was asking people to get coffees. Let's do a one to one. Fuck that. Dude, I'm not sitting with someone one to one to get a cup of coffee, because first off, that means you're going to talk my ear off about business, and I'd rather fucking watch paint dry. Okay? What
mm.
I've realized is that I'm a captivating speaker and I'm really freaking good at it. And so are others. And I want to be around people that are like minded. And that's what I've built. I've developed something special, which is that people want to do business with me. John, how many people do you know that sell insurance?
uh, Three.
Okay, well, besides the three, if someone random was going to ask you who's the first person you thought of, I guarantee you I'm number one.
Pretty much, yeah, man. As soon as you come to mind.
Well, that's what I'm building, right? Because John, I know you personally, but there are so many people that I don't know that I've spoke on a stage in front of, or I have been seen on social media that are like, Austin, I want to do business with you. And John, that's 90% of the people that I do business with now. My days are unpredictable now.
Mm,
Of course, they're carefully structured so that I am, able to get to everything. But your question is, where do I want to go next? John, there's a question of to answer that in two parts. The question becomes, where does Austin want to go? And what does he want to do with Safe Shield Insurance? I'm going to answer Safe Shield Insurance first because it's the easiest. John, I'm building the largest independent insurance agency in the entire country, and you can lock that in, square it away, send it back and forth to me because it's still going to be true by the time it gets back. I'm doing it, and whoever wants to come along for the ride, you're more than welcome to join because it's going to be fun. Now, where does Austin Glazer want to go? Austin Glazer's 5-year vision is to stop selling insurance. And I'm not saying stop selling insurance. I'm saying step away from working at a computer desk all day. I am best when I'm on a golf course, when I'm getting drinks. I am the best at building relationships and building connections. I want to create a killer sales force that the world has never seen before. And I want them to be just like me or a variation of me because I'm great at this and I want to make them great at this too.
yeah.
John, it's funny. I talk about building a great staff, but I'd be remiss to not share something pretty cool that happened to me recently, and it's made me feel really good inside. I held a Connect CTNY event about 3 months ago, and it was at the Ridges in Stanford. And Connect CTNY is a entity I started for networking. My partner Mike Spindler
Mm,
and I got through these events, and there was this kid working the door, and he was a young kid. Turns out he's majoring in insurance. I got to talk to him a little bit. He was working for the restaurant. He told me that he was majoring in insurance, and I told him that I am insurance, and he'd be an idiot not to talk to me. Long story short, he came to work for me as a summer intern, and he's been so exceptional that I decided to extend the same offer that I was telling you about earlier, which is where someone who was number one at my previous company gave me an opportunity as a full-time college student to work for them and be their assistant. Well, the coolest thing
yeah.
is, John, is I've done that. And I made a deal with him where if he passed his test on the first try, he would come be my assistant full time while he goes back to college. John, he did it. And of all the cool shit I've done, making $600,000, starting a company, being top freaking dog at one of the biggest insurance companies in the world, it's so cliche to say, but this has been one of the most crowning achievements I've ever had. To have someone that believes in your
Yeah.
vision and believe in your goals and dreams is one of the most rewarding things because it means you're doing things right. And to me, that's number one so far. And that's been my greatest accomplishment to date.
Man, it's one of those things where I experienced that for the first time this year as well. So I hired someone, so not from here, but from the Philippines, and I hired my first video editor. And I think about like 72-ish people applied for the position, half of which were all just copy and paste responses. So it was about like, let's say 40 actual applications that I kind of went through. And I ended up getting on the phone with this guy. I got on a Zoom call and I was sharing him with my vision with like Stop and Stare Media and where I'm going. And like he was game for it. Like he was just like, of course he had, things that he wanted to accomplish. And I was just like kind of how sharing with him my vision and how by helping my vision carry out his vision will also come into play. And then there's another person I've been talking to as well recently, and man, it's so crazy how the world works. So see, um, at that point, around last year, around like middle of 2022, right? We were. I used to jokingly say that I was going to hire her eventually, and now we're in a position where now we potentially are going to be able to start doing business together. And she was on board with the vision, and it's crazy when it starts coming around full circle. And when you paint these big pictures, how people are more than willing to hop on your ship and just ride along, come along for the ride with you. So I kind of want to ask you, because for us is kind of intuitive. This is just kind of who we are, thinking big, having visions. But for the people who can't really see, past the first couple steps, man, uh, what are some tips that you would, you can give to people so that they can become more like visionaries? And I'm sure not everyone is gonna have it, but like every kid dreams, right? So it's in all of us, right? Some people have it locked away and can't tap back into it, but it's in all of us. And what's it like, being a visionary? Like, how do these thoughts and visions come together?
Well, for someone that's young and looking to do this, the ultimate thing I can tell you, and not just insurance, but in anything, find a mentor. Find a mentor and then be a sponge. Because if somebody's done it, chances are they'll help you achieve the same goal. Because just like parents, how when parents have a kid, they want to see that parent be more successful than them. And I want to see my assistant Eric be more successful than me. There is no question in my mind. Now, he's got a long time. I'm not going to let him beat me anytime soon. And he's years and
Yeah.
years away, but who knows? Maybe he takes over Safe Shield Insurance one day. I have no idea. But what I do know is that that would be one of the coolest things ever because I built that, right? And your stamp on the world is only as good as those who come after you. And when you're looking for
Hmm.
a mentor, he might be thinking, or she might be thinking the same thing, which is that I want to leave my stamp on the world. How can I do this? Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
John, I make a lot of money, but it's not about money. Okay? What it's about is making a goddamn impact. I don't know if you can see this here, but I have a goal board to my right. You can't. But on the bottom, now I wrote this January 1st of 2023. On the bottom here, it says, if it was easy, everyone would. And then it goes ellipses, the three dots. It says, make a fucking impact. Because that's what I want to do. I want to make a fucking
Yeah.
impact, and not just monetarily. Now, sure, what's Austin? Now you asked Austin the insurance guy, but what's Austin Glazer's long-term vision? My vision is to be retired in 15 years,
Yeah.
easily. Golf course every day, a couple vodkas. Whew. I get excited just thinking about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I wanted to ask you, man, because you found where you're best serving, right? You found where you're at in your flow state, your A game, the golf course, the networking events, man. How does one start finding their zone of genius, as you can, as some would call it, so that they can start making progress faster? Because a lot of times we're taught, cold calling, cold email, DMs, social media videos, shorts. There's so many strategies and ways to get to a certain level of success. You found yours and you're running with it now, and that's making you go a lot faster and then a lot further. And so it's like, how does one start to find their zone of genius so they can start propelling their journey?
Um, hmm. It's a tough question because, like you say, the golf course. But let me tell you something, John. If I was just starting out in this business, I wouldn't be on a golf course. I'd be at my desk
Hmm.
grinding, and I'd be doing everything it took to
Yeah.
get leads in the door. Because the thing is, when you start in insurance, for example, nobody's giving. I mean, some companies do, but they give you a shit commission. Then, for me, like I'm out there busting my ass, or at least I used to bust my ass to get leads in the door. Now I'm so established that I figured out ways to capitalize on that. And that's why you see me on the golf course. I joined a private country club, one of the most prestigious clubs in Westchester, and I play golf with people that I do business with or people that I want to do business with. That's the trick. Okay, now is there for someone getting in the business? You better not be on the golf course every day. I wouldn't let you work for me. I've earned
Hmm.
that, right? But I think that for someone, I mean, I think it's the same answer. Find a mentor. Like, don't go about this
Yeah.
yourself. Like, there are people that are better than you that are doing it already. There are people that are better than me that are doing this. And I talk to them every day. Like listen, here's someone who's talking. I got a sales coach recently. And you know what he said to me that blew my mind? Do you know, John, that Michael Jordan even had a sales coach? Sorry, Michael Jordan had a shooting coach.
Yeah.
Find a
I'm
mentor.
not surprised.
Find a mentor, because that shooting coach isn't better than Michael Jordan. Maybe he is, but he's not, because there are other facets that make you you. But if someone can teach you how to excel and get there faster, what are you doing working harder to not be smarter?
Yeah, 100%, man. Austin, you dropped a lot of amazing nuggets, man. We got into your story, man. We got into talking about sales a little bit. We got into talk about public speaking, communication, the grit that it takes to succeed as an entrepreneur. We talked about a lot of amazing things, man. Where can we find you at? Where can we go to keep up with you and your journey and potentially work with you as well with Safe Shield, man?
Type in Austin the Insurance Guy Glazer on Google. I guarantee I pop up. Everything you could want to see.
Amazing. Nice and easy. Now it's time for our famous 5 questions, man. Question number 1. What is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
The most impactful lesson I've learned in life is recently, and that's that everybody has a story, and it's those who know how to tell it are the greatest.
What is the most admirable trait a person can have?
The most admirable trait that a person can have is being a sponge, the ability to learn and the being able to be great, but by listening, being coachable.
If you had to change someone's life, but you only had one book, which book would you recommend?
Depends on what they're getting into, but I would say Straight Line Selling by Jordan Belfort. And what I always tell people, and I've bought this for every single person that's ever worked for me, years and years, we're not selling penny stocks and we're not doing anything illegal, but Jordan Belfort was a sales wizard. And he teaches you things that you need to know. And if I had a number 2, I know you only asked for one, I'm going to give you 2. If you needed number 2, I'd give you Rich Dad Poor Dad, because it teaches you to think bigger.
What is the legacy that you're trying to leave behind? You kind of hit it already, but just to summarize it, man, what's the legacy you're trying to leave behind?
John, the legacy I want to leave behind is for my kids. I want to give them the life that I didn't have. And I want Austin Glazer on my headstone one day. I want it to say, renowned father, renowned friend, renowned husband, and kick-ass fucking insurance guy. How about it, huh?
I was waiting for it, man. I was waiting for it. And to finish off, man, for anyone that wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, what is the first step you recommend they take?
Take the first step.
Amen, brother. All right, Austin, that's all for the interview, man. Thanks again for hopping on the official podcast, man. So glad to have met you and come across you, and looking forward to staying connected and hopefully speaking on some stages with you too, man.
John, appreciate it, brother. All the best, my man. Cheers and l'chaim.